I'm Diane Earls, Network Manager for the Chartered Institute of Marketing, and welcome to this session looking at digital versus traditional marketing. Please do feel free to tweet. I don't know if you can read my handwriting there. It's CIM_info_north. That's CIM_info_north. A few facts and figures around this subject which might be of interest to kickstart. Did you know that 86% of the UK population is connected in some way? Only 11% of adults have never accessed the internet, and that one of the fastest growing mechanisms in the retail world is click and collect. Perhaps one of those kind of stats we mustn't really ignore and say that digital is not here to stay. But is there still a place for traditional marketing methods? Well, with me this morning, our esteemed panel here are going to debate this. Firstly, I'd like to introduce you to Gordon Jones, marketing tutor, consultant and author. Free books on our stand, C20. Who is going to argue for traditional marketing? Gordon.
Are we on? Can you hear me? Oh, good. I don't want to put it in my mouth. Okay, folks. Well, until the onslaught of digital, I mean, it's been happening for some years, hasn't it? But it's really taken over in a big way. But prior to that, and I'm old enough to remember, the days when, in fact, trying to get space in newspapers after, in the early days, it was limited because the pages after the wall and the sort of difficult to get. However, it's all moved on. I suppose in the 1960s and 70s, of course, most people, national advertisers, were using national press, national newspapers and magazines. Then, of course, we got this thing called television coming in. And of course, television now, it was one channel at ITV. Look at them now, the number of channels. It's quite amazing. My wife and I, we spend a lot of time watching Yesterday and Dave. God knows what they are, but they're full of ads, So there's those. So TV advertising, yeah, it's always been available on a regional basis. Granada Television or Yorkshire Television can do it on that basis. Then radio has come onto its own. Radio Luxembourg, is that still going, incidentally? I was on it once with Huey Green. That's a long time ago. But is it still going? Anyone listen to Radio Luxembourg? No? Okay. But here locally, Tower FM? Tower FM, it's the Bolton station. Is it still going? Good. Anyone listen to it? Oh, dear me. I'm really struggling. But they're available nationally. Of course, Classic FM's a good one, as well as locally, yes, Piccadilly and Tower. But here we begin to think, well, the press, everything's dying. No, it isn't, because the ad spend, this is the latest figures, 2015, from the Advertising Association. It showed that ad spend in the UK grew 5.8% in the first half of 2015 to £9.4 billion. That's a lot of money, isn't it? 9.4 billion. And although the internet showed the biggest increase, 13.3% increase, and all of the media showed increase as well. So radio gone up by just under 3%. Outdoor, I love outdoor. It's a great medium. It was used intelligently. That went up by just under 3%. Cinema's up. Go to the cinema quite often, and it's lots of big campaigns now, aren't there, on the cinema? They make a feature out of them on the ads. Direct mail, 4.5%. Now, direct mail, wonderful medium. Again, if you can target it, and we'll talk afterwards about local people, where you can use it very effectively. And television has gone up by 7.1%. And why is that? I think, again, people use, they're using the internet to broadcast their web address. So everyone has got a web address on or a phone. I always look to see there's a phone number on there, and it's on, and then it's off. So you've got the web address on there, hopefully you'll visit, and that's why it is. So you're using the medium, whereas before it was the press, it's on the TV. So, what is the future? I think, it's going to grow. In fact, the latest figures show that ad spend is on the increase, even in the early part of 2016. Let's hope it continues. There's a great choice out there, but again, it's knowing who your customers are, where they are, and how much you're going to have to spend to reach them. But more of that later when on the next question.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Gordon. Well argued, I think, yeah, and stats to back it up. So he sat right next to you, but to counter that, that claim, we have Imran Farouk, Digital Marketer and Managing Director of MMC Learning, which is a CIM accredited study centre, and he's going to argue for digital marketing channels.
Okay, great, thank you. Digital marketing is in a very interesting place at the moment, and it's an interesting journey. So some of you may be on the beginning of that journey, where you're overwhelmed with information, and it's overload of information, and you don't know where to start. Some of you have got a website presence, and perhaps it may not be brilliant, it's not mobile responsive, you've got issues with your website presence. Perhaps you've got a great website and a great online presence, but it's not attracting the visitors. Some of you may be in a position where you're attracting a lot of leads through your website, but it's not the right leads. Some of you may be attracting a huge number of leads through your online presence, and maybe it's a challenge and you need resources to follow and create them into sales. Some of you may have had a bad experience with digital. You may have spent money on an agency, you may have tried it and you've lost money and it's not worked. But imagine if you had a website presence that was magnetic. Customers were attracted to you. Imagine if you had a website presence which automatically captured leads for you, even when you're asleep, 7 days a week. Imagine if you had a presence where you were capturing leads and they were automatically being nurtured to qualify leads for your sales teams. Imagine if you spent £100 on marketing and you knew exactly what that £100 was getting you in terms of revenue, in terms of leads, and that accurate measurement. So the vehicle to get you from where you potentially are now to potentially where you want to be is digital marketing. And I've spent almost 20 years educating marketers through qualifications, CM qualifications, and I've spent the last couple of years fixing sales funnels with digital marketing automation. So that's the vehicle that would get you from one place to another.
Thank you very much. Another good argument. Okay, so poles apart. We're going to put Nicola right in the middle now. Subscription marketer at Briefing Media, Nicola Shaw, will champion for a mixture of the two and how they can work together.
Hi, well, I work for Briefing Media and I specialise on our agriculture portfolio, titles such as Farmer's Guardian, which you may have heard of, Dairy Farmer and Arable Farming. Farmer's Guardian is a weekly newspaper, the other two are monthly magazines. And due to the diversity of our demographics of our audience, very much of the opinion that neither traditional or digital marketing should be used in isolation. It should we adopt a multi-channel marketing approach. So whilst print is still our strongest product proposition, we have an app edition, which comes out every week as well, and we have a mobile responsive website. Because our market is so broad, we've got quite a few slow adopters, but that doesn't mean that we should leave them behind and just concentrate on our print. But it also means that we shouldn't race ahead with our app and website and not consider our audience from a print point of view. So when I'm approaching a subscription campaign, as I've just recently done, I look at all the channels and how they relate to my audience. So an example of this is I did direct mailing that landed last Friday to 16,000 people to highlight that we are raising our price of our subscription and give them a chance to beat that price rise. I also, at the same time that I knew that was landing from working with the fulfillment company, I set up emails to the different parts of the UK that was the mailing, so that they got an email. The data then went to my telesales team downstairs so they could call the recipients, and we also have used Google AdWords, and we did a campaign on our subscription site there. So it's very important that we can communicate with people on three different channels and get that message across. So it's the same message but slightly different for the channel. An interesting thing we find is with Google AdWords is our conversion rates is 59% desktop and only 22% tablet and 19% mobile, which you would think, listening to Diane's stats, is quite strange, but that shows you the audience that we have and how we need to communicate with them.
Thank you very much. Okay, well, you might have already formed an opinion. You might have walked in with an opinion. But I wanted to start the questions off and open the floor up with some questions to you guys. Sorry, you didn't know it was going to be audience participation. How many of you promote your business using traditional methods? Hands up. Okay, so quite a few of you don't promote your business, okay? How many of you promote your business using digital methods? Oh, okay, a few more people woken up, fantastic. How many use both? You didn't know you were going to get exercise. Okay, how many of you actually measure the performance of any promotional activity that you do? Well done, you guys. Fantastic. So you've all got an opinion. Right. I'd like to open up the floor now. There is a roving mic, so you will be able to be heard over the crowds outside. Any questions for our panel, please? Ooh.
Hi, I've just got a question for Nicola. Do you think the desktop rate that you have is due to your demographic? Because farming community is traditionally an older community, it's an older industry.
Yes, I do think that, and I think that's partly but because of the older demographic, but also because of the nature of farming in the rural locations. We do struggle with broadband connectivity. Anecdotally, we are finding that that's improving, and also we are seeing an increase in tablet with people receiving gifts at Christmas and things. But yes, I do think it is due to.
Excellent, good question. Thank you. There was a gentleman at the back.
Good morning. My question is, one of my companies, we actually promote the business using pay-per-click, and we're also organically on the first page of Google. So we're there with pay-per-click and we're there organically. I find it difficult to find out how we can measure the pay-per-click campaign against the organic campaign on Google. I just wondered if you have any ideas on how that can be measured. Did anyone hear that? Sorry.
The first thing is that there's in the market there's a lot of types of pay-per-click now. So you can do pay-per-click through Google AdWords, you can do Facebook advertising, LinkedIn. So the first bit is to look at the wider range of tools that are available to you. Then within the tools, you look at intent to purchase. So if you look at pay-per-click and somebody types in a series of keywords which are directly related to your products, the intent to purchase is higher than something like SEO, which is organic. So people might be randomly tripping onto your website with a wider series of keywords. So you can't really measure the two one against each other. The best thing that you could do is inside your Google AdWords account, there's advanced features inside Google AdWords. So you could track your conversions. So some of the biggest conversion metrics that you can get is to track how much it's costing you to acquire a lead inside pay-per-click. So what you want to do is take a piece of code from your Google AdWords account and put it onto your thank you page. So when somebody comes to your website, fills out a web form, and they go to that thank you page, that conversion metric, it becomes a goal. So you'll be able to see exactly which keyword is generating a lead. And then if you want to get more geeky, you start figuring out which keyword is generating a sale and so on. So you can zone in more accurately on pay-per-click and the kind of intent to purchase. If you're comparing the two again between SEO and pay-per-click, SEO is good to capture the wider range of keywords. So if you were selling TVs, you'd start optimizing for a wider range of keywords. When somebody's done the research on TVs and they know exactly what size TV they want, they know exactly what make they want, they start typing in a more detailed series of keywords and a longer tail keywords, which is where you can take advantage of pay-per-click and get a better return.
Just on that point then, can I get the panel to agree, I'll try, that digital forms of marketing will actually mean that it's easier to measure your activity? Can we get 3 nods there, or are we going to disagree?
I think so. I think so, yeah.
Yeah?
The point I would make, as well as a traditionalist, Diane and I were talking before, we had a guest speaker some years ago, didn't we? Paul Heathcote, the restaurateur who was born, I think, in fact, he went to school in Bromley Cross. He's a local lad, isn't he? But someone actually said to him, why don't you open a restaurant in London? He said, what the hell for? Or it was Birmingham or London. He says his current, I think then he had about 4 restaurants. He said within an hour I could be at every one of them. Whereas it would take him, I don't know how many hours to get down to Birmingham. So what I'm saying is, all sales quite often are local. And I brought here some examples. Some of you may be familiar with them, but we now live in Bromley Cross, moved into it 3 years ago, and I tell you, we've used these magazines so often. About 4 there, we've got local suppliers in. That comes in every month. That's the one from Bury. Here for You, I don't know if you know about that. Anyone from Bromley Cross area? But that's delivered to 21,000 copies every month in Belmont, Bromley Cross, Bradshaw, Dunsker, and so on and so forth. This Red Rose directories, anyone familiar with those? There's 35 of these published, and this is the one for Bromley Cross, just Bromley Cross. And out of that, there's 4 or 5 people we've used to do work at home, right? And it costs about £40 per month to go in with a quarter-page ad. So what I'm saying is, all sales are local. Why travel thousands of miles, or hundreds of miles these days, when in fact there's probably business on your doorstep? Anyone use these at all? No?
No? Is this all news to you guys? You need to go and get some copies off Gordon, I think. No? Any other questions?
Thank you. I think having just announced that he's closed his last 2 restaurants and will never do it again, Paul Heathcote might have been better advised going to London rather than staying locally.
Well, I wasn't with that.
But the question that I was going to ask was to comment on something you said earlier, Gordon, which is that it genuinely is all about where your audience lives.
Yes.
And working as I do with quite a large driving school, their core target audience obviously is youngsters who are learning to drive, 17 to 20 maybe, where digital, social, viral, SMS and all those kind of techniques are extremely important. Their second largest target market is widows in their early 60s whose husbands drove them around for years, where exactly that kind of local magazine that you've demonstrated is exactly the place, or the church magazine even, to reach that kind of demographic.
Yeah.
So, you know, the lady on the end is absolutely right. It should always be a mix, but the mix should be dependent, as you said, on where the audience actually lives.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Can I just pick up on that point? Because Nicola and I were talking about avatars before the session started, and yes, where the person lives, but actually understanding them. So I don't know if you want to talk a bit about avatars for us, Nicola?
I was speaking to Dan because I also put house ads into all our newspapers. Now, in the house ads, they have a telephone number and they have a URL, which is a direct link to the cart on our website, so they can purchase straight away. But I often get nice handwritten letters into the office with the cut-out piece of newspaper and a handwritten cheque saying, please could you sort my subscription out for me. So even though I'm using email, I'm using digital, our subscription site through PPT has still got a telephone number, a contact address, a contact phone number so that somebody can speak to them. I think it's everything, digital, traditional, it's all marketing, and you should give them enough contact to make that purchase. Excuse me. We have a big Twitter following through Farmers Guardian, but looking at our avatars, what we post on Twitter differs quite a lot from what we post on Facebook, where we may focus on shows and sales and with livestock farmers and be very visual, whereas the Twitter, we come up to date with political views, news that's going on, and then we've got our Pinterest account, which is maybe we look at incidents, sort of the flooding, and try and get information out there. But then we have some fun sort of memes and sheep and try and communicate with both our young farmers and humorous comments with our older farmers when they do actually get a break, which I believe is very seldom.
So customer experience as well, so following that journey and how they want to interact with you.
Yes.
Gordon's actually doing a session for us on is it the 22nd of March?
At Blackburn
College about customer experience.
Yeah.
And it is really about getting close to that person, that personal touch. So I'd like to pull Imran in here. So as the emergence of new digital technology has created an opportunity to keep it personal, because actually people think it's impersonal. And if you do think that, can you give us some examples, please?
Okay. First of all, in terms of the looking at the targeting and accurately targeting, so if you've explored some of the social media paid tools, we started advertising on doing LinkedIn ads. And when we're advertising on LinkedIn, we can actually select the job title of an individual, the country they're in. And we started this a couple of years ago, and it was fascinating doing it. And we targeted a female marketer between a certain age in Sweden and set up a landing page. And people were filling out that landing page with that profile. So that was a couple of years ago. But if you look at Facebook advertising now, the amount of criteria you've got on selecting somebody's profile and accurately targeting that individual is unreal. And then they introduced something called Facebook Audiences, which is even more amazing, because you can actually take a list of customers. So you can take 200 email addresses from your customers, upload them to Facebook, and tell Facebook, find me an audience like these guys. And somehow they actually find a very, very accurate audience based on the profile of email addresses you're uploading. So the technology that's evolving is pretty amazing. And the challenge is, when we originally started experimenting with the technology, we got carried away with targeting an accurate profile, then creating a landing page which talks to that profile. So if you know they're based in Bolton, they're working in this job and so on, and the landing page is talking to that. It seems to be welcomed rather than being offensive. Because at the moment, if you look at, there is an information overload, and we've got too much information hitting us. So for our brains to be able to digest and interact with landing pages and websites, the landing page has to talk to that individual, and they would react. So I would only respond to things if landing pages and messages, if they talk to me as a managing director of a company or a small business, working in education, and if it hits a certain criteria, my brain would absorb it and I would react and fill out a form on the website. So the challenge is the best route is to go personal. If you're solving a need for your customer, you're kind of servicing it. And there is a limit. You could, there are people going, there are Facebook statuses as divorced and so on. So if you're kind of sending personal messages, I suppose there is a limit to it. But generally, it's welcomed to have a personalised journey. And I think the future of digital marketing is to actually build a universe around one individual. Some of the things we're doing now is we're building a lot of marketing automation around an individual's journey. So when somebody clicks through a landing page, goes through a website, depending on what they click on and what they interact with, they're getting different messages and they're going down different funnels. Some of the installations that we've done, we've actually cut sales cycles down from 6 months to 3 months on some products. And on some products which are high value products, we're selling £1,500 to £2,000 products, and they're converting within 1 hour flat on interacting with emails on websites and pulling out the credit cards because they're going through a personalised journey.
Interesting, thank you. Any other questions from the floor before I pile in with the ones that I've just thought up while he's been talking? Yeah? Oh.
Hi Guys, just a quick one. And when you talked about the future of marketing, I mean, obviously, if you look at the kind of topic that we're covering, digital versus traditional, I think the lines are extremely blurred at the minute. But if we come back to kind of traditional marketing knowledge from decades and decades ago, we're all still following the same principles that were taught, you know, such a long time ago. In terms of the future that you see, I mean, I've just come from MediaCom, so obviously I kind of looked at the digital side quite heavily, and you know, in terms of what they're doing in terms of programmatic advertising now and some of the innovative stuff that's coming out there, it's crazy the amount of information that we can gather on consumers. In terms of the future of marketing now, with the blurred lines obviously intact, how do you see the future of marketing over the next couple of decades in terms of the lines being further blurred, or you know, whether one's going to stand out above the other?
Imran?
Have I been on this one?
No, it's all right. I've got more.
I think wearing my small business, and because I'm an entrepreneur like many of you, and a small business owner, so wearing my small business hat, I think it's important to have marketing as a line in your budget that you're committed to on a monthly basis. Because the challenge for small businesses and entrepreneurs is, as soon as we have a bad time, because your lives are on the line, your family's on the line, you know, you're figuring out how to feed your staff and your family. And the first thing that gets cut is marketing. So there needs to be a different attitude. Going forward, there needs to be a different attitude to marketing, because marketing is what's going to get your business to, I mean, if you're still trying to get to your first £250,000 turnover, it's what's going to get you there. If you're trying to get to your first £1 million turnover, it's the investment in marketing that's going to get you there, nothing else. I mean, there's lots of different roles in this audience right now. You know, some of you are directors, some of you are managers, some of you are responsible for sales, business development. Some of you are working in different industries as well. And the bottom line is, everyone is actually in the same game, and that game is marketing. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, what role you're playing. Marketing is the vehicle that is going to get you success. So going forward is getting to, first of all, it's getting back to the mindset that this is what's going to take you and get to where you're passionate about. You know, it'll fulfill your dreams, whatever that is. It's going to get you there. So committing to become a master in marketing is what's going to get you there. So I think that's the future. It'll be interesting to see where it turns out in terms of the traditional versus online. Because like I said, I'm seeing some of the technologies that are coming out from. I've seen some presentation from the chief vision officer from Microsoft, and you know, screens are going to disappear. There'll be screens coming up in the middle of a room and so on. So it's going. It'll become very digital in the future. But marketing, I mean, the core principles of marketing stand, and they'll work through any medium and technology.
Thank you. There was another question out here, the lady there.
Hi, I should put my hand up here and say that I am in digital marketing as well, so I am probably a little bit biased. But it's really about cost. If you are a small business, say, I mean, we have touched on that slightly, but you know, when you look at Facebook ads in particular, where you can target the demographics very, very tightly, like's been discussed, you know, you can potentially get your business, your advert, your post or whatever in front of a few thousand people for around £10. So if you were going to use traditional leafleting, for example, you wouldn't even be able to get a leaflet design for £10, let alone get it printed and distributed. So my little question is this: if you were a small business setting up today and you had, for example, less than £500 to spend on marketing your business, what would you spend it on?
Excellent question.
I think, yeah, digital, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say in response to previous speaker, you're familiar with the 7 Ps, those of you who have done the talking, I won't go through them all, but there's one, it's called people. And this talk that I gave recently in Middlesbrough and I'm giving in Blackburn in a fortnight, we talk about that. The most important thing is people. And research has just come out from Gallup about B2B companies getting really upset and losing business because people are not bothering. And it ends by saying, people like to talk to people. Now, do we buy into that? Which you can't do it digitally, but, you know, if you... Yeah? It's all about people. That's my say.
And can I just to add to your response, in that maybe it's because I work in subscriptions, but every piece of traditional collateral that I have has a code which is attributed to that interaction as well as digital. So I'll just continue to measure and analyse the return on investment and how my customers want to interact with me, and whichever way my customers are going, and that's how I'll interact with them going forward. And that might be through digital, it might be through print, or a combination. So.
Imran, do you want to add to that?
So just to answer the £500 question, it's got to be £500 a month, because like I said, back to my message, you need to invest in marketing consistently. I think if you're on a very tight budget, is to look at the digital tools which, because your customer is on different parts of their buyer journey. So at the start of the buyer journey, they're just researching products and getting to know. And then go through an education process, and then they eventually will be ready to buy at some point. Ideally, you want to capture them at all points. So if on your web page, if at the beginning of the buyer journey, you want to have lead magnets on your website to capture them, so whether it's a free book, educational piece, free consultation, whatever business you're in, you want to capture that lead and then figure out where they are in the buyer journey. So if you're limited by budget and need to generate a return, pay your bills, you're looking at very much tools where your buyers are at the end of the journey and they're ready to buy. So pay-per-click is an obvious tool. So and it's cheaper if you've got a series of keywords related to your products. And again, you may if you've got a series of keywords and you prove that keyword turns into revenue at the end of it, and you're 100% behind that, you've got all your sequence in place. If you know that £500 is going to generate you a few £1,000s, you can just keep investing. So the key is to create a money machine. So every time you stick £100 in to whatever it is, Facebook or pay-per-click, there's revenue at the end of it. So it's difficult. It's key to build that funnel and that process that works. It takes time to do. You have to keep tweaking it, keep modifying it. But it is, I can assure you, 100% possible that you can put £100 into a digital campaign, and you can guarantee that you'll get £1,000 at the end of it. Absolutely guaranteed. And all you're doing is putting more money into digital marketing.
Interesting. We're about to run out of time, so I'm going to bring it to a close, but the guys aren't dashing off, so if you want to catch them and ask them some questions on a one-to-one, I'm sure they'd be delighted to be grilled further. I just wanted to pick up on one thing about people. You all touched on people, because we are important, aren't we? From both sides, really, in terms of the customer, looking after your customer and creating a universe around one individual, I thought was a brilliant take-home. And obviously from the people who are working in your business and hopefully putting forward the best that they can for your company to promote it.